I appreciate you.
Hello.
Hi. Hi. Aiden.
There's only five. Oh, I'm sorry. Bring my glass. Are my glasses back to the counter?
Yeah.
All right, I'll come get them.
It's what we could, that's if you like.
At some point, I become an old man and I. Otherwise, I take them off and do this.
You were trying to give me the first number for it. I was like, oh. I was like, I have one of these if I can. How are you guys? Yeah. Being nosy. Yeah.
Or, wow, we wait to get the meeting.
Let's see if you see.
Most of you know, we did have, I just notified a few minutes ago. But one school program bus accident, there were 5 kids on the contacting those families right now. That's why Jamie and Tom, Interaction Tom Majors left to go help them. So hopefully they'll be back. Sounds like everybody's okay. I think it's.
Okay, all lights please, we need to pledge allegiance. All in order.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Santa?
Senator Johnson.
You never contact me, so I have no idea.
Diane Mendoza. Here. Pettit,
Here.
Tyler Wilson,
Here.
Robin Vaughn. Here. On Buzzard.
Here. 2 action agenda, additions, corrections, and modifications. Can I get a person to read the motion or should I do it? Yes, I'll do it. Motion to approve the agenda, removing and correcting items as presented. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Nikki. Welcome.
Phoebe Johnston.
Aye.
Diana Mendoza. Aye. Vicky Pettit,
Aye.
Tyler Wilson,
Aye.
Robin Vaughn. Aye. John Buzzard.
Aye. Number 3, public comments. Anybody like
Adding,
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Is the agenda been changed or no?
No, I think we're okay because it's on.
Okay, never mind.
Oh, yeah, it's all right. It's all right on there. Anybody, public comments?
Did anyone sign up?
No, didn't check. I'll get up. I'll check. Thank you.
Did any of you sign up? for
No.
public comment?
We're good.
We have a nice crowd tonight, but they said no, Mr. Butler. Okay. Go on to the consent.
Number 6.
There we go. I'll go real quick. The main thing to highlight is the school maintenance grant. This is an annual grant. It's a matching grant, so that means the state will give us up to $50,000, but we have to match it with our own $50,000. We are continuing to finish doors. I feel like we're going to talk about doors forever, but there are 12 doors that we've identified that are still the old wooden doors that face the hallways. So those are things like closets and storage rooms, those types of things for the most part. And like the kitchen door at North is doesn't match, so things like that. So there's just 12 left, we hope. Okay, so that's it for the consent.
Can I get somebody to read the Tyler?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda items, including personnel report as submitted with the stipulation that each individual is required to comply with all requirements for new hires as indicated in Illinois statutes and RCS board policies and procedures. including ratification of bills prepaid by the finance manager under board policy 450.
I second it.
And so, I said pause in a second. Just spoke that in. Thank you, Nikki. Nikki seconded it.
Katie Johnston,
Aye.
Diana Mendoza. Nikki Pettit,
Aye.
Kylie Wilson,
Aye.
Robin Vaughn. John Brevin.
Aye. We're going to 6. All right,
Yes.
tentative tax levy, sir.
All right. All right, so next month, the board will be asked to approve the property tax levy. So we need to put this information out ahead of time, just so the public's aware. And I do kind of an overview for you all of what the property tax situation is. So in Rantoul, this tax year, overall property value has increased by 11.8%. It was 11.4% last year. So that's great if you are a property owner, that your property value is worth. There was also $388,000 in new property construction. What that would be a major addition or a new property altogether. So we are in a county that falls under tax caps, which means even though the property value goes up 11.8%, we would not be allowed legally to say, well, we're going to go up 11.8% ourselves. So we cannot do that in Champaign County. But just to point out, new property is not subject to tax cap in the first year. So it does get taxed at the full rate in its first year. So in a tax cap county, we are tied to the consumer price index. For the previous 2 tax years, the consumer price index was well over 5%. The 5% is the limit. For the last 2 tax years, we were basically capped at 5%. Okay, because even though CPI was over 7%. This year, CPI is 3.4%, which is a much more normal looking number. So that is our cap. What that means is, for instance, if we collected $1 million in property taxes, this year we can collect 3.4% more. That's it. Okay, the numbers are very different, but so that's what, $34,000. I did my math right. I did that right. Good. All right. So this year, the levy is a 4.57% increase is what we're asking for. So I need to explain that too. So you typically, as long as you're still under 5%, issue the levy for 1% more than you're going to probably get. And the reason for that is in the county, Champaign County, there's a possibility that the assessor's office has made miscalculations, that property wasn't accounted for. So there could be additional property added between when we pass the levy in December and when the tax bills actually go out. So that's just to account for any possible property that was missed. So if we were to get 4.57%, which we won't, that would be an additional $309,000 in property tax revenue, if I spelled it right, for next year. So, but this line here, the likely extension, is the line that is probably what we're actually getting, which would be a 3.62% increase. So that's slightly higher than 3.4 on the CPI. And that's because of the new property. And then we would anticipate an additional $245,000 in local property tax revenue. So the tax rate would actually decrease by 0.35%, so greater than 0.25%. The tax rate would go down. And so that marks the 3rd consecutive year that the board will be able to cut the property tax rate for the district. So that will be on the December agenda. Now, to be clear, it doesn't mean people's property taxes go down. But what it does mean is we're not, and this has been an ongoing pattern for this district. There have been only a few years when you look back since the tax cap went into effect that we increased that rate. So there was a time when Rantoul, Village of Rantoul, Rantoul City Schools had kind of combined, had the highest tax rate in Champaign County, and they no longer do, which is nice to say. Mr. Majors forgot I was at board meeting. Okay. So any questions on the tax levy?
Number 7, emergency operation plan.
All right, we have to hand this one out. This was not available to the public because this is not a public document. Because it's regarding school security. So we talked at the last board meeting, there was a presentation from Officer Kraft and I about emergency response. And I mentioned that we are revising the emergency operations plan. So what I've given you, and this is a confidential document. I don't know why I put that in quotes, because it really is a confidential document. What that really means is the stuff that's highlighted in yellow would need to be redacted before. So that's personal phone numbers, certain sensitive information about reunification locations and things like that. So I also did not give you anything past page 26 because those are just part of the appendix. So anyway, so that I'm asking that the board approve this. The big thing we've done is we're realigning our emergency operations plan to fall in line with the I Love You Guys Foundation, which is one of the things we talked about last week. So the key ideas in that are following an incident command structure, using the standard response protocol and the standard reunification method. Since last month, we did test Raptor, which is our new app that we use for emergencies. I know you shouldn't have gotten any alerts yet. Did you get any alerts? You were the one board member that asked.
Sign up.
No, we would sign you up. So I saw your name in the system and I'm like, ooh, would we turn that on yet? That's okay. You don't want to yet. And so we've been testing it out, making sure rosters are in there. System works. We're still ironing out the kinks on it.
Did it work? Did you use it for this incident with the bus?
No,
You don't use it for that?
no, you could. But since this bus incident was 5 kids, they're going to be able to just contact those families. We haven't had an emergency to do it yet. We've had one school do a drill with it, and East Lawn, and then Rise has been testing it. So Rise is unique because of, they are a part of JW Aider. They're not actually a separate entity. So something like that app gets a little more complicated. And as I believe I said the last time, what's coming next for our district, we'll be working on that standard reunification method. We have all the materials in place. So our next step is going to be doing some training with our administrators before we would practice it with our staff probably next school year. If there are any questions, just a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the item as presented.
I'll second.
Steve Johnston.
Aye.
Diana Mendoza.
Aye.
Vicky Pettit.
Aye.
Tyler Wilson.
Aye.
Robin Vaughn.
Aye.
John Vogt.
Aye.
So the next step with this
Thank
is, the next step with this is there are 13, 12, I'm one of them. 12 different groups that will get copies of the full reunification plan. So the main ones are our schools. So there's one for each building, but we'll go to Rantoul Fire Department, Rantoul Police Department, Regional Office of Education, Champaign County Emergency Management will all get copies of it.
Of this thing we just went through.
Yeah, they'll get the big one. Hannah's working on it. How big is it again? About ½ inch thick.
Yeah, it's maybe about, I'm getting 1-inch binders. That like gives you an idea. Maybe 60 pages.
I'd say the main thing, I know we're ready to move on. But the main thing for board members to look at would be page 3. And it's this one with a grid on it. And that's the high priority hazards. what it's called. So that gives more detail on what you would do. It's not page 3, not page 3 at all, page 4.
Page 3.
It's so a fire alarm, what happens? So we trigger the evacuate, and then in the next column over is more details for our staff.
That's the part that I read.
And then the last 7 pages are the individual buildings. And then you can actually see where their assembly areas would be. So if they couldn't go back in the building, that's where they would go next. Right. And then if you want to call building administrators, their numbers are in there.
Giving this back to you.
That would be great if you would, but you are welcome to keep it.
Sensitive information.
Okay. Ready for number 7, emergency, number 8, discussion of K-5 organization. All right. Before we start that, I hope you wouldn't mind if I interject myself here for this one comment. I would ask the superintendent to explain about the 90% rule at first. That was mentioned a lot, documentation. So if you would, sir. Sure.
Yeah, and I'm going to actually go ahead and help. So one of the things that we didn't talk about last year is something called the 90% rule, which applies to multilingual classes. So whether it's a bilingual classroom or a classroom that's an ESL classroom. And so the state law is that a bilingual classroom should be 90% the enrollment of a monolingual classroom. So if the English only 5th grade class at East Lawn is 20, which I'm sure she would love, the bilingual class, the corresponding bilingual class in that building should be no more than 18, right? So it's a consideration, I think, that we need to look at as we go through these. What if we are not following that rule? It is not like there are, police from ISB that come out and, we're in trouble. We would likely be asked to provide a plan for how we're going to address it in the long term. There's a possibility we would be able to apply for waivers, things like that. So something I would compare it to in the special education world is in a regular education classroom, no more than 30% of the students should have IEPs. And there's lots of caveats and exceptions, but once you're over 30%, in Allison's world, we have to do a waiver. Is that what it would be? So basically notifying ISB that it's happening, and so it would be something like that. So the main thing for me is we shouldn't be planning to not be in compliance with it. So did I answer your question? So, all right. Great. I'm just going to go and hop into this then. There are copies of this over there on the table. Hannah, did we run the copies in Spanish?
Yes,
We did. So there
there are English and Spanish over there.
okay, and so if they should have been able to find them in Spanish. I apologize. I noticed on some of the translation for Pleasant Acres, they translated it to a pot. So that's a mistake. Here we go. So I do want to make sure we do a little background. I think the board is aware of the background for everyone, is that this was a conversation we started having, a lot of conversation last school year, and even going back further. Because remember, at one point we moved all of the 5th graders from East Lawn to Pleasant Acres. Last year we had a lot of conversation and shifted this year to Pleasant Acres having the K2 bilingual and East Lawn having 3 through 5 bilingual. Both of those schools continue to have K5 mono. At the time last year, the board asked to go ahead and do a demographic study on enrollment. That was presented in September. Last month, I presented to the board survey data that was collected from our families and from our elementary teachers. And then we're here, okay? I talked about 3 ideas at last month's meeting. I was asked to add a 4th. And then as I was going through it, I decided to put a 5th one on, and we'll kind of go through those. So I'm actually gonna stop sharing because there's nothing to look at now. Except for the paper. So I do want to make sure I was clear on, how did we go about doing this modeling? It is a snapshot in time from October 23rd. So I will tell you at this point, enrollment has already gone up. What we're doing literally is saying, let's take these models and what would they look like today with the same kids in the same grade level? That makes it a little easier to model than it would be if I'm also then trying to predict how many kindergartners we're going to have next year. That's really an unknown. Also, when you see the staffing assumptions in there, I'm only looking at regular classroom teachers. So monolingual classroom teachers, bilingual classroom teachers. I haven't yet looked at, well, how many administrators would we need? How many teaching assistants would be needed? Those things. So that's a more detailed work that we would get into. I did in each model present breakdowns by program, and the only programs we looked at were monolingual or bilingual. And then by grade level. I did a brief consideration of transportation, what it would look like, how it would affect bilingual programming, and how it would affect special education programming. When we get to one of the models, well, that's the next thing on my front page, transportation. Just me kind of eyeballing the options that are presented, I concluded that option 4 would probably be the greatest increase in transportation costs if we were to do it. So that's the one I had First Student and Darcy Widener kind of dig into and see how much more would we be spending on busing. So that's kind of gives us the high end of what transportation costs would probably be. And then at the end, there's an evaluation. We talked about having a rubric last month. So I created something using a yes/no structure. What I didn't do was put any value on those categories. So because I think the values that come with them are going to vary depending on your priorities. So that's kind of up to you as individual board members to put those values on those categories. All right, so let's jump in. Any questions so far? 2 more hours. It's 2 hours. So this is our number 1 is our current structure. So let's kind of talk through what you're looking at. So for Broadmeadow, I will not do this for everyone because just talking this one through to explain. Okay, there's 236 kids. Now, in that case, they only have monolingual students. They do not have a bilingual program. When you look at East Lawn, there's 279 total kids. 163 are in the monolingual classrooms. 108 are in the bilingual classrooms. But then I also noted they only have grades 3 through 5 right now for bilingual. So that's how that works. Now, when you go down to the next section, where it's the next table, class size averages, and then in parentheses, we have bilingual. So look at East Lawn, the EL line. Kindergarten, they average 15 kids. In monolingual, they have no bilingual kindergarten. First grade, they average 15 and a half students. Second grade, right now, they're averaging 12. Third grade, in the monolingual classrooms, they're averaging 12. In the bilingual classrooms, they're averaging 18 and a half right now. So that's how you read that table. And then go all the way to the far right column. School-wide, they average 14.8 per classroom. In monolingual classrooms, in bilingual classrooms, they're averaging 18. All right, and the next table is the number of classroom teachers. So across the 4 buildings right now, we have 47 monolingual teachers and 12 bilingual teachers. So we have a total of 59. So that number 59 is kind of our baseline staffing number. I guess another assumption I did on this, I did not, do anything that was going to increase staffing. The one thing you'll see is the number of bilingual teachers throughout does not change. We are at the tightest possible staffing right now for bilingual. So, next, last part, which,
Where you go on? If, shouldn't the totals of the bilingual and the monolingual equal the total?
no,
Why?
good question.
Thanks.
Because there are self-contained special ed kids in that total. So it should only be off by less than 10 kids, right?
I think,
Right, so Fellows and
For one.
Acres is 285,
yeah,
and then there'd be 7.
Yeah.
And I do want to clarify, those 7 more, they're in the monolingual and bilingual classrooms also. But it's partly tied to how we staff it. So there's 1 teacher for those 7 kids. And yes, those kids go into other classrooms.
Can I ask a couple?
Yes, please.
Just a couple. So how many bilingual kids in our current plan now are choosing, their parents are choosing not to put them into the bilingual program on the current plan?
So I don't have that specific number. It is higher than last year. So what you're asking is, that's not what you asked, but the way I'm hearing it is, what are our refusals? That's
Yes.
how we refer to them. So
Because of the way we structured it.
yes, and that number has increased. But I would like to get you a specific number.
so wait, by refusals, is that they're still in our
Still in the district.
district, they just not.
They're just not taking.
So we, for instance, what we currently have, look at East
So then
Line.
they're on the monolingual
Mhm.
side?
They're in English only classrooms.
So then that means for them, they're not getting anything in their
Community
language.
services.
Yes, that's correct.
You said services, what do you mean services?
Well, they're not getting the bilingual help from the bilingual teacher.
So we always have parents who refuse services. But what we're seeing this year is more parents than we've typically seen refuse.
So parents that were already in the program and then
They
opted out after this decision was made.
And oftentimes what we're seeing is they've opted out one child, but not the other because of
Blessing.
being able to keep them in the same school.
So
Um,
what does that mean for them education?
Well, I think being in the bilingual program is the best option for the students educationally, but also families are going to make decisions based on what's
Yes,
best for
they
them.
feel it's best for them.
And I think that's, that's what we're seeing as parents choosing that they would rather, and also a lot of our students in the bilingual classes, this is an important part. They function just fine in English. Okay, because remember the bilingual program is about kids learning and maintaining their native language just as much as it is about learning English. So, yeah, I think what we saw probably was parents who felt their kids were strong enough in English are refusing more because they want their siblings in the same building. But I do not have specific data on that.
My other, oh, go ahead.
But I did hear from some families that the reason some of them opted out was also because there was a level of, per se, confusion that they were having, not because a decision like this one, it was because, yeah,
I heard that too when I spoke
Yes,
at Sam's thing. She was like, oh,
yes,
that's what they were trying to say. Now I understand.
which sometimes kids go like, I have that situation with my youngest, they get confused. Sometimes it affects.
She's in the room right now, but Karina had the job of trying to explain this to a lot of parents. And yes, there was a lot of confusion. And even once school started, parents were still making decisions about refusing or continuing once they saw how it was working.
My second question is of the bilingual well, not just the bilingual, but the teachers listed in this total for this particular situation. How many of those split schools? I know last year when we.
No, these
talked
are
about
all
this,
full-time classroom teachers.
So they don't go, they don't travel to a different school for sure.
We have a lot more teachers in this, right? Those are not in consideration right now, right?
Okay.
This is just your traditional classroom elementary teacher that your child spends most. These are
Good
questions.
For the parents that just walked in after the meeting started and they have a chat. Say what to say.
Or should let them speak because they just came in. Better
We get through the
afterwards.
presentation
Yeah,
first.
Right.
And then they can
And
speak.
then,
Yes. Afterwards, would that be all right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so, right, as we go through this, so if the board were to keep the current organization, there are some things that I would probably be putting on the table to support Pleasant Acres and East Lawn more. One of those things would be to do some interior renovation in the buildings that I don't think would be exorbitant. We wouldn't be doing anything exorbitant, let me clarify that, but I don't think it would cost too much. So one of the things that both buildings need 18 classrooms devoted to regular classroom teaching. When you look at it, there's 59, 36 of them are at East Lawn and Pleasant Acres. So they're very tight on space in those buildings. And one of the things I would probably bring is you could take, say, 2 classrooms that are side by side and do an interior renovation in those classrooms to create more efficient office and therapy spaces. So right now in all of our buildings, we have, so those other types of teachers that they're providing therapy, small group services, interventions, they are in regular classrooms. So you might have 3 or 4 of them sitting in a classroom together, trying to all do their jobs together. And renovating interior space into office suites with therapy spaces in them. One, we'd be able to increase privacy for providing those services, but also we can fit a lot more people into those rooms. I know it doesn't make sense, but it's all about efficiency of the layout. And right now it's not efficient. So if you did some interior renovation, you might free up additional classrooms in the building.
ballpark, how much money are you talking?
No idea. If the board were to go with option 1, then I would be reaching out to I've seen some ideas for how to do it from our architect, but I have not asked him for a cost. Yeah, right, so it's $8 million, then no.
Well, one. Give you a second option.
Yep, so I'm not gonna go over all the number details unless you want me to, because that's gonna shift on each one of these. The main thing is, well, what is the model? Okay. This one is suggesting Pleasant Acres go all K2 for monolingual and bilingual. And then East Lawn going all grades 3 through 5 for monolingual and bilingual. So you can see what it does to their enrollments. They're still larger schools. But you are also actually reducing the number of teachers that are needed. I said this last year, I'll say it again. We're not necessarily saying we want to cut. This would be need 4 fewer teachers. We're not necessarily saying we would want to cut 4 teaching positions. That to me, on any of these models, is where we would work with building administrators in terms of if we had an extra position that wasn't a traditional classroom teacher, how would we use that person? Or perhaps the building is going to say, we want to keep it as a traditional classroom position to try and lower class size. So it would give us flexibility. So on this one, what you would be doing is treating the monolingual and bilingual students the same between East Lawn and Pleasant Acres. It's the main thing. And then going down here at the bottom, that's where I need to read the part. It would cause a who is disrupted by this change at this point? It would be the monolingual students currently at East Lawn. No disruption for the current bilingual students. We could see bilingual families go back to having their students in bilingual because they wouldn't have the option of keeping them K-5 in one building if they were Pleasant Acres or East Lawn homeschool. Northview and Broadmeadow would see no changes under this. It's hard, I think any transportation increase would be pretty minimal. Perhaps one more bus route, but I don't think it's a significant transportation increase. There's no changes for special education, except for the initial transition that all of those monolingual K-5 kids would experience. Bilingual classes would still be out of compliance at Pleasant Acres, but not at East Lawn. And so what we would see is any kind of out of compliance we have is going to vary year to year, just based on the enrollment at the grade level. So if there's a smaller bilingual group, it's going to be in compliance. If there's a larger monolingual group, it's going to be, it's going to fluctuate year to year at that point. All right. Any questions on this one? Okay, great. All right. 3 would be, we've discussed it, it came up in the demographic study, is that Northview, we just looked at the neighborhoods where our bilingual students live. Northview has the most bilingual students, but they currently don't have a bilingual program. So this model, and there's within this model, there's things we could choose to do differently. This is just one version of this model, but the idea is East Lawn, Northview, Pleasant Acres all serve the bilingual students who live in those respective neighborhoods. Okay.
So they would just be going to their normal schools,
Yes.
the neighborhood schools.
Yes, but there's always a but. The issue is that unless we're going to add 6 bilingual teachers, then what we're doing is at East Lawn and Northview on this model, those students are in split classrooms. Okay, so so what you see is if right now, look at the East Lawn line, in parentheses, there are 13 kindergartners right now whose home school is East Lawn. There are only 6 first graders. So we would do a split class of 19. You would have a bilingual teacher, and we would have a TA with them. Typically, with a split class, have a TA. We've done that every year that I've been here as superintendent. We've had split bilingual classes somewhere. This is the first year we've had none. Unfortunately, this model creates 6. So about more than half the bilingual kids would be in a split classroom.
Is that not?
I would say generally it's not something teachers like.
Because
You have to
teaching
teach 2 grade
2
levels.
different
Yes.
grade levels.
Yes,
Yeah.
which is why at this point,
Sometimes I just need to say stuff
Yeah.
out loud.
well, but Nikki, that's also why at this point we have,
And we've been doing this for how many years?
well, usually there's a couple. But this takes it up to 6 altogether, which is more than we've ever done. So until this year, Pleasant Acres, back 2 years ago, Pleasant Acres had a K1 split, a 2-3 split, and a 4-5 split. But then some years they might have a big fourth grade group, so we wouldn't split it. Right? So now the other option is that we add 6 bilingual teachers. I want to caution us on doing something like that because an added position is going to come out to around $70,000 in expenditure. So if you say, yeah, let's just add 6 teachers, it's $500,000. I'm really rounding up a lot. It's really only 420,000. But that would have to be a consideration. Transportation would probably decrease in this model because more kids are attending their neighborhood school. It might not actually decrease enough to lose a route. So, right, how many kids go on a bus? 60-some go on a bus. Again, special education would require no changes other than the initial the new school that any of the kids would experience. Bilingual is still out of compliance with the 90% rule at Pleasant Acres. They're in compliance at East Lawn. There's the split grade level concern that we've talked about. All right, any questions on option 3? Okay. Option 4 is what I would refer to as true grade level centers. So the idea behind this would be on this model at Pleasant Acres, every kindergarten child in the district would be at Pleasant Acres. And Pleasant Acres would only have the pre-K students and kindergarten students on this model. Okay. Just for the record, the pre-K students are in the Pleasant Acres building forever. Okay, we're building it. So, so when it says PA 186, keep in mind there's another 186 kids in that facility. They're just down the hall. Okay. So in this model, then East Lawn would have all the first and second graders. Northview would have all the third and fourth graders. And then Broadmeadow would have all the fifth graders. An interesting thing happens no matter what, whichever school has 2 grade levels looks really big.
Right.
All right. So we would address that through the fact of, does Broadmeadow with 168 students all in 1 grade level need 2 administrators? Right. And those are decisions that we would have to make where we could potentially put the second administrator at East Lawn or the third administrator.
Right.
Because there's 300 some kids. That would fall through all the way with other types of support staff too. Okay. Does show you what those average class sizes would be. This has the potential to reduce 10 teachers positions. Again, we're talking about how would we use those resources differently, not how do we fire all the teachers? That's not what we're talking about, right? What it does do, well, let's talk transportation. We would go from, so this is the one where we kind of dug in and ran the numbers better. We currently have 249 K-5 students who qualify for transportation. And that requires 6 buses right now. We have a lot more busing than that, but this is only our general education students. We also bus pre-K, that's a separate program for busing, and we bus special education. Then under this model, the number of students who would get busing increases. So this is the value questions. Do you want more kids being able to get bused or not? I mean, it's some people see that as a positive. So we'd go up to 490 students qualifying for busing. We know for sure it would require at least 2 more buses after talking it through. I said, let's say 9. So we need to add 3 bus routes at least. An increase of about $204,000 based on our current route pricing. What I want to point out though is we get reimbursed for most of that. So the number we get reimbursed though changes every year. And it's anywhere from 75 to 90% of that money would actually come back to us from the state. But that would happen on any of our transportation increases. As long as the child actually qualifies to be transported, there is a reimbursement allowable for that. Special educations would require no changes. Students would be transitioning between schools similar to their general education peers. The only exception on this is, and again, we're not going too far with the modeling yet until we get more direction, but the self-contained program for students with emotional disabilities is something that Allison's going to have to consider how that would work. In the special ed world, there's a rule that Allison, can you explain it so I don't explain it wrong?
Sure, yeah, they're, state guidelines, so when he talked about the 70-30 earlier, that is for percentages. There's an age guideline and it's based on the birthday that shouldn't ideally go beyond 4 years. If I have a kindergartner, I shouldn't have a child in that same room who's more than 4 years by birthday.
And there's something to with being with age level peers too, right? When they're in the gen ed
They should
setting.
have access to the same
Yeah.
age level.
I mean, I don't see that as a huge obstacle in this model, although, but it may result in, say, for instance, having to add a additional special education somewhere. Bilingual classes are in compliance with the 90%. Any questions on this? Yes.
So as far as the teachers coming down 10, does that mean like if we have teacher retirements, we just wouldn't fill that position? Or we would still fill that position and we would just utilize them elsewhere?
You could do either. Right? So, yeah, but again, if we have to kind of decide what direction. The direction is to reduce expenses, then yeah, when a teacher leaves, we don't replace them. But I think things we would want to consider are, so for instance, at a kindergarten building, do we decide to, instead of having kindergarten averaging 19.6 and 19.5, do we add more teachers at kindergarten, right? At first and second grade, or would we use some of those positions and add additional reading teachers? Telling you what I would do, by the way. I mean, those are considerations that you have.
And this is also all under the assumption that everyone would willingly switch to whatever they would have to switch to. So
Right. Well, under this model, if you teach fifth grade this year, you can teach fifth grade next year.
right, but if there's less,
But if all of the teachers came back, then we'd have a problem. I would love to have that problem. Okay. So, but odds are, like Robin said, we're gonna have, there will be some. But yeah, you should be able to say, I'm comfortable saying that you should be able to stay in the same grade level. What I didn't talk about is some of the positives on this one as far as teacher collaboration, curriculum work that we need to do. But yes, go ahead, Rob.
So potentially this has the potential to save us money in the long run because it gives us flexibility with staffing and we're still getting reimbursed for transportation.
Yep.
How would the busing work? Would they be neighborhood bus pickup? I think it's important to explain this to the public at least, because last time we did this semi idea of grade level centers, we had the parents bring them to the schools and then we took the schools and distributed them out. So I think it would probably be good to understand how you are envisioning busing.
So what we have drafted, what the model we were working on for transportation is, if the child lives more than 1.5 miles, which is what it is, they get a bus.
Picked up in their neighborhood.
Yes. What could actually, I am a little concerned it could drive up the number of buses. Because let's say my child, East Lawn is first grade. Okay. It's gonna have to go, we're gonna have to get kids from South Point and Gulfview to East Lawn, right? Can you do that with one bus? Or would you use two buses? So we haven't mapped out routes, but anyone beyond a mile and a half would qualify for busing. One of the unique things about Rantoul is we have 3 elementary schools relatively close to each other. And so there's a lot of kids that aren't gonna need busing, except when they go to Broadmeadow for 5th grade, for instance, right? So that's why, one of the reasons why Broadmeadow is only one of the schools with only 1 grade level. Another consideration the board could have in terms of expenditures is, would we want to open up more busing for kindergarten students? So if all the kindergartners are going to one building, do we try to, we don't get reimbursed if they live within a mile and a half, but it's also a service that you could consider for families. I feel like my back's to you, Diane, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, almost.
So if we're potentially saving money with this plan, and we could potentially give more busing services to the community, especially, I worry about our kids like in winter, the ones that are walking and it's very cold out. I would love to have the ability to just bus everybody in winter at least. But I like the idea that we have the potential for a busing. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think what you were describing was the last time around when we did grade level centers, which was different than this,
Yeah, it's different.
is they were using shuttle buses.
Right.
We tried that at Pleasant Acres and East Lawn this year and it did not go well.
Okay.
And I don't know if we have any parents left using the shuttle bus.
I don't think the parents liked it very much
Nope.
the last time we did it. That's why I think it's so off-putting. I thought it was a good
Yeah, so
idea to
we've-
talk about it.
We've already decided that next year, if we're under the same model we're in now, next year, we're just gonna route those kids and not try to do a shuttle. We're just gonna route them like we would any other student. Yeah, it was just complicated.
Yeah, it was,
We had a lot of kids waiting around.
yeah,
And to Robin's point, because we've done something similar to this in the past, I think the biggest consideration I want to consider is ways that we can address pain points that people had before. Like, it was not a very popular thing, and from an efficiency standpoint, I think that there are a lot of benefits to doing something like this. It's money that we could be spending on other things for the students in the district. But I think that we just have to think about a lot of these things and try to make sure that we're communicating it well to people, so it hopefully can be as successful as possible, if this were the option of choice. It,
Like, and start getting.
yeah, for sure, no matter what we do, I think obviously that's something we have to consider. I think the added piece on this particular option is people have really mixed opinions on how it went last time. So it's a different thing,
Yes.
but
And I learned, this is my third round talking about it. That's why I didn't bring it up last month. It is very different from what we did last time. I know it's, this is literally every kid at that grade level is in one.
are there other districts that utilize this system?
Yes.
How are they?
I think it depends who you ask. So I don't have that in front of me, but I do know that, gosh, the last time we did this, I was looking at districts that were demographically similar that are doing it. I think it seems like a lot of them are doing it for the efficiency reason. In this area, the districts that do it are not comparable to us. And they're doing it, but they're doing it for the efficiency too, which is, Mahomet and Monticello do it, for K-5 right now. Those are the two local ones I'm aware of. Now, we have other districts, like the other feeder schools that go into Rancho High School. Keep in mind, they're all just K-8 schools.
Well, I
So
know-
there's a lot of K-8 schools in our area too.
What is like Ogden, St. Joe area? They're the similar situation. They're K through.
Yep.
Flatville is like their junior high, I believe.
Levels, junior high, there's
Royal is K through 2.
2 or
They
3.
do the similar situation and it works for them.
Forgot about that.
That's
So
also
my wife went to
it's
school
hard way to compare the two
Yeah,
districts.
it's,
Flatville,
yeah.
right? Number 5. All right, so this is kind of a hybrid. And none of these are new. I mean, I think all of these were talked about at some point last year. So this one's a hybrid where, on this model, what I put out was, let's go ahead and have Pleasant Acres be an early childhood building. So you'd have your pre-K and your kindergarten. And then the other 3 schools are serving grades 1 through 5. So they're gonna look more like traditional elementary schools. And that number doesn't feel right. So you can see how that would look. 2 of the schools would have bilingual programs in them and would be span grades 1 through 5. No split classes doing it. As soon as we get, I should clarify this, as soon as we put the bilingual program in 3 schools, we're back to split classrooms. So, and keep in mind, Broadmeadow has a relatively low number of bilingual students. So it makes sense for us to continue to transport those students to East Lawn or Northview, which is what we're doing now. Bring them to Pleasant Acres or East Lawn. If we got to a point where there was a sufficient number of bilingual students whose homeschool was Broadmeadow, we talk about bilingual services at Broadmeadow. Really on any of this. So that's really what those numbers look like. And I don't know that we would see a significant change in transportation costs. I just ended my sentence. This would depend. I didn't put a period there. Thank you. So again, you're going to have most kids going to a neighborhood school. I think a lot of the busing is going to be coming from the same places it is now. It's going to be coming from South Point and Gulfview. The special education would not require any special changes. The bilingual classrooms would be in compliance with this model. Right.
So is this a flexible, or is this a acceptable classroom size for our teachers, like 21, 22 kids?
Well, I know the answer would be teachers, but it is within our class size limits that we have. So the limit for kindergarten and 1st grade is 20 students. The limit for 2nd and 3rd grade is 23. And the limit for 4th and 5th grade is 25. Once we go over that number, then we work with the association and come up with a remedy for the class size overages. We haven't had a lot of class size overages for the last 2 years because of some things we've done with enrollment. So once a class is full, that new enrolled child is going to get assigned to a different school when they come in.
But this one saves us 10 teachers from what we're currently working with now.
Yes.
So we could have some flexibility there to decrease class sizes.
Anybody want to sleep on it?
It's the model 1, 2, and 3. Just so people understand, we're out of compliance with the 90, but that's fluid because of, obviously, if there's a out of compliance in second grade at Easton, but EA is okay, those kids are gonna move.
I think from,
Just so people understand that that is not a hard number, right?
as I said, there's no ISB police that come in. The worst case scenario is, ISB would come in and audit us, and then we would have to come up with a corrective action plan. And that might be doing things like adding TAs in the classrooms or adding teachers. The problem is right now with the current model at East Lawn and Pleasant Acres, we can't add a bilingual classroom if we want to get in compliance.
Because we don't have space. Plus, if we're adding teachers, we're adding expenses.
Because I remember we had kind of similar options last year, and I know we're not quite to this point, but I do like to have the little thing in the back of my brain that I think dual language would be a good goal to get to. 4 and 5, to my brain and to my understanding, seem like they would be the most possible for like setting up that kind of framework. Am I correct? Okay.
I mean, where we
So-
have everybody doing bilingual, if they
Well,
look at,
Yeah.
If you were,
that.
it would be.
or bilingual. I mean,
Yeah.
Because you'd have more sections, more classrooms at a given grade level, it would be easier to kind of convert a monolingual classroom into a dual language classroom. I'm way oversimplifying, but yeah, so with that, it would set us up to be able to better do dual language at one campus. Well, on 4, you would be doing it actually. But on 5, we would likely take a campus and begin to do it. Reminder, dual language means English only kids also being in that bilingual classroom, and they're learning Spanish, while the bilingual students, who mostly speak Spanish, are learning English, so they're mutually learning both languages.
I love this idea. I mean, it's so much more beneficial in the long run for our students. And most colleges nowadays require, or at least encourage you to have multilinguals or be bilingual. So I really like that.
I think truly, like they say the sooner you like learn a language, like, you know, the faster you pick it up. I mean, I have a child who is doing the Spanish after school program right now, and just came home and counted to 25 to me yesterday, and I was so excited. So, but you know, it's amazing to see how their brains work and how they do things out.
Anybody else? Bear with me a few moments. It's something that's not on here. Is it feasible? Is it doable? And I mean that, well, yeah, we can do it. I don't mean it that way. If we went strictly to neighborhood schools. If you live, just theoretically, if you lived in the East Lawn district, and maybe we might have to redraw the lines a little bit, but if you live in the East Lawn district, you would be kindergarten through 5th grade. Monolingual, bilingual. Could we do that in all the buildings?
Well, I think that is what
So I thought we had one.
option 3 is trying to do.
But not completely.
Yeah, if you're an East Lawn bilingual student, you'd be able to be there kindergarten to 5th grade. The downside is you're likely missing classroom.
I didn't, be very honest, I did not read it. It says PA, Northview, East Lawn with bilingual, but Broad Middle bilingual to PA.
So the only, right, in that with bilingual, we wouldn't be keeping the bilingual students at Broadmeadow. Because there's not enough to provide
So
service.
just to be very frank, this was my favorite of all. I know the rest of you haven't done that. I'm not trying to make anybody say what they prefer. But, and I say this from living here all my life. I'm not trying to criticize anybody here at all. It's not meant as any criticism or criticize the administration or anything. I like the way it was years ago. If we could, the parents would know exactly where the kids are gonna be. Kindergarten through 5, they can become East Lawn, and they're all East Lawn. That's my school. Maplewood, where I went, that was my school. It's no longer here. Northview, and of course, this begs the question. I'm also being completely honest here, transparent. I am not in favor of grade centers. I know you say they'll be different, but there's so much movement and to me, we have enough challenges in this community. I feel if we do like 4 and 5, which I know is going to be compliant, and it'll sound, I just don't like the idea of kids being split up. I don't like that. I want Susie to go to school with Mary. I want Joseph to go to school with Deb. And I want them to be with their friends all the way through, if all possible. We have so many other things that affect our kids. And I just want to see us, in my view, and again, I'm not trying to persuade anybody, I'm just trying to tell you where I'm coming from. That if we could keep it as close to the neighborhoods as possible, instead, I can live with 3, if that's it. But to be honest, I have a hard time with 4 and 5. I understand, I listened to what was said, I appreciate what was said, but I just, 3 of me is, I've not talked, this is not something, yeah, I've not shared this with anybody, not even my wife, about how I feel about this, but I just feel strongly. And I'm not trying to persuade anybody, I'm just trying to say, that's 3 is to me. I'll probably stand and plant my flag.
Mr. Burston, I had a question for you, since. And I. No, yeah.
You all grew up here as well.
Yeah. But way back, well, I don't know how it was when you guys went to school. I don't even know how much older I am than you guys, but anyway, long story short, way too late. How do you feel as a teacher if you had to teach 2 different grade levels?
I would not like that, no. No.
Not like that.
No, and I never had to do that. And I'm just saying, I guess this is my wish.
Yeah,
I'd say it's,
yeah, I know.
I just don't, I just
do.
cannot. And this, is a little criticism, where you're old man, you can't represent that. You're showing me to be true. I'm not, I'm not,
I think,
again, not trying to persuade anybody.
I think what you're saying with you want the school pride back, that you're a Northview Pirate, an East Lawn Ace, or a Broadmeadow Bobcat.
No, can't be a pirate.
Just have it at night.
Piercing in the ear, yes. I think 5, because you're at PA, you're a Thunderbird for your kindergarten year, and then the rest of the time you're at Broadmeadow, you're a Bobcat. You're at Northview, you're a pirate. Going on along the lines of what you're saying.
And that was my second one. It transferred, it was 5, was my next.
So I see what you're
Again,
saying.
I'm just expressing.
So that way the parents know
Yeah.
that my kids
Yeah.
are going to be at Northview or East Lawn or
Yeah,
wherever for 5 years.
I understand that too.
So.
I feel like sorry.
No, go ahead.
I feel like maybe my perspective is a little bit different because I switched schools.
Yeah.
Like I started at Pleasant
Please
Acres.
don't think I'm trying to
went to-
persuade anybody.
No,
I'm just
no.
telling you what I.
Well, it's just funny because so I went to Pleasant Acres for like kindergarten and first. I went to Broadmeadow. Beyond that point, went to Ader. And I think the biggest thing was, I think you have to have pride in your like community, you know, like for me, it was less about, you know, which school, like, it's kind of cool to be like, I went to three, like, went to Eastland for gifted. So like, I went to 3 of the 4, you know, like, that is a point of like pride. And I think also like we have higher mobility maybe in a way than we used. So like, I feel like my experience is not an uncommon one where you don't stay in those because like we moved across town at the time. So, I mean, for me, I think I see it as less about like neighborhood school pride and more about like community pride. And I think that that is an important place to get back to, but
I can't
I,
argue that.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on that one. And I think also our community is a lot different than it was when we were younger, when you were teaching. It's a totally different demographic than when I was growing up. When I was growing up, the base was still here. You know, we had a larger community, you know, there's a lot of people here. And, a lot of people didn't drive their kids to school. Most of us all walk to school. Most of our parents now drive their kids to school. There's very limited walking. The ones that are walking because they have no choice but to walk. And I think we just kind of have to look at what we're doing now on what we're dealing with now, on the demographics that we're dealing with now, on the people in our community that we're dealing with now. And nostalgia is good to me. I love the fact, you know, that I got to go to Northview and Ader and all of that. But in the long run, I think if we're saving money, and the schools are functioning better and we're providing more services for our community, then we should consider that. Number 3, to me, we would be spending more money because we would potentially have to hire more teachers. And I don't think our bilingual students would be best served in that program. Because this is the one we have some more split level classrooms. Yeah. Yeah. I guess I just think we need to consider our neighbors and who they are now.
And this one also, I didn't sure this one of the reasons I want to speak first, so I could get this and then have a discussion.
Yeah.
On this.
Your thoughts? I feel like you're just sitting over there by yourself today.
I'm listening. Ultimately, you know, in my opinion, I don't want to split myself for teachers. It's hard working on 2 different curriculums. I've gone into classrooms where there's split classes, and it's, even though they have an aide in there, it's not fair to the teachers. A lot of work, in my opinion, because I've seen it first. Walked into those classrooms to visit.
Would number 4 have split level classrooms?
No.
3's the only one.
Another one.
4 to 5.
Yeah.
4 to 5 ones.
5. Well, I mean, it was, I thought you mentioned something out loud, but it wasn't asked on the
90%.
page.
okay.
I did, I was like, I heard that too. You said something about it. You did.
If I did, there is a component of this we haven't, I don't think we're gonna get into it tonight, but I think another layer of this is we have an opportunity to do things better than we're currently doing. When I look at some of these models, some of them are really kind of maintaining the structures that we have now, pros and cons to that. But there's a lot of other work that needs to be happening. We need to find ways to give our teachers time to do the work they need to do. How do we are there things about some of these changes that might make jobs easier within our district so that it's the work harder, not smarter, or work smarter, not harder idea, sorry, I messed that up. And so when you look at that's why I want to make sure, hopefully we keep an open mind on an idea like option 4, because if I only have 5th graders in a building, it is very different from what any of us went through as a K-5 school. But instructionally, what are we doing? We've got to keep in mind that the majority of our 5th graders are reading at a 2nd or 3rd grade level. And right now, if I'm the only 5th grade teacher at East Lawn, there's one monolingual teacher at East Lawn with 25 kids right now. And I have students reading everywhere from the 2nd grade level to junior high level. I'm limited on what I can do in the time I have those kids. And I do think whether it's grade level centers but just having more options for us with our kids in a building. So if I'm in a building where there are 7 5th grade classrooms, and all we're doing is 5th grade curriculum. As the building leader, I'm an expert on one grade level now. The instructional coach is an expert on one grade level. The library is working with one grade level. And then within that grade level, though, we've got this huge range of abilities that we've got to be able to respond to. So I think when we look at it that way in terms of educationally, what are we going to get the more bang for the buck, I guess, is, options 1, 2, 3 are pretty traditional. Probably 5 is traditional too. I know our teachers are going to do their best no matter what, but I think one of the things Jamie Roundtree and I have been talking about this year is how do we actually bring all the 5th grade teachers together to work on 5th grade? There's not a time to do it. Yeah, it can be challenging. I'm not arguing against,
But that's,
I'm just,
number 4, that's what you're.
yeah, I mean, I
From
think,
what I'm not just stating things. That number 4, you think is the best route.
you're asking me, yes. I think it's also the option that's going to upset the most people. But is it going to allow us to make some bold changes, hopefully for the better? I think so. We'll be fine. We'll be fine if we stay another one.
With the teachers and the support staff, would they be failed, you think?
I think it would depend who you ask.
It's always been.
So, I mean, I don't think this hasn't changed from the 3 times ago we've talked about this. I know Chris is here in the audience. Carissa loves Pleasant Acres.
Yes.
She loves the school climate and the school family that they have there. And the teachers at Pleasant Acres don't want to lose that.
Nope.
And that's not just Carissa. I mean, you just happen to be in the room. So you are losing something one way or the other.
I guess I wonder if there's like maybe for our next meeting, obviously we're not gonna vote on this.
Right. So we're
It's
just-
not even on the agenda.
No,
It's an
we're
action
just
item.
talking.
So maybe for a future meeting, we could ask the teachers to maybe give us their pros and cons on. I don't know, what do you think?
I like that idea, because sometimes it's hard to go into the school.
I'm not a
And-
teacher. I'm a
Right.
substitute and I get what you're saying about collaborating
Right.
with your other teachers. I mean, I subbed one day and you know, if a kid's having a bad
And you
day
never came back.
and you.
Except one day.
No, I did 2 days. I did 2 days. But one day, um, yeah, if a kid's having a bad day, you have that option to pull them out and let them go sit in another teacher's class for the day and separate themselves from the problem. Whereas in some situations, if you only have one teacher in 5th grade, that's not possible.
I think it's a very good idea. Poll the teachers, find out.
Or
And
have
sports
them
staff,
give us some
It's not the teachers.
input on that.
And I want that. I don't.
And
I will
the
work with
best
our
way-
association on that.
What was that? I didn't hear.
We're gonna, so how do we get feedback from our teachers?
I know we did a survey,
What do
but I
you
don't
think?
know if that's the best way, so.
Yeah,
we're
I
open
wanna-
to
I
ideas,
wanna
so,
hear.
yes.
I'm a
Real
teacher,
testimony.
professor.
Oh, are we allowed to talk? Are you gonna let them talk? Because if you do, I want to sign up and talk too.
Oh, why don't we talk afterwards?
Well, no, but if you're gonna let other people do public comment, then I want to.
At the end, yes, at the end.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to do that,
I would love to.
and we do that. Sessions without waiting. Yes, we'll do that before the closed session. So you won't have to wait for it to come back.
Okay, perfect.
Please do it from. Yeah.
Is that what we're gonna do now?
What was that signal?
I don't know.
That was the K-5, we're on number
That's
9
number
now.
9. Information items. Yeah, that's okay. They else have anything they want to say about it? Okay. Information items, number 9. Student
Hold on.
discipline.
All right, so this is in the packet. So, one thing on here would be the EIS Administrator and Teacher Salary Benefits Report. We'll have a revised one out probably next week. Some staff members were looking at it today and the information was wrong for some of them. And then, student health data immunization is not, it's done, we just don't have the report done. Got all the data in, just not the report. All right.
Awesome. Okay, move on to number 10. Page, and that is new business. Anybody have any new business?
This might be a good spot to answer comments.
Some people can speak now. But before we do that, though, I want to thank the board for giving us information about the superintendent. I hope next month that we can talk to you. All right? Talk to the superintendent about his evaluation.
Yep.
Okay, yep, okay. Now, we're gonna go, superintendent had a very good idea. We can talk now in new business. So whoever would like to speak first, they can stay in their seat. They can come sit
We'll
here.
come back to the stuff.
No, that's fine. I'm just asking for the purpose of me taking minutes. If
Need to do
you
that.
want to come up and talk, I need them to actually put their name on the paper.
Yes, we need to.
So I can,
Have you
so I
fill
know
out
who they are.
first. So we'll get. So you gotta fill them out.
I got it.
How many are gonna speak?
Who,
Are you guys, anybody else?
he just stepped out. I don't.
The first one.
Did you bring pens over?
I don't have any pens.
I got a pin right here.
If you want to start, everybody just fill it out and I can get it.
Grade level schools, when you start at.
Old is.
21 in March.
Okay.
So we did it, we started kindergarten at East
Okay.
Lawn. And then we went to North View for 3 through 5. Then Kalen's at.
He just does have these and I'm trying to. Because I don't. Exactly the same.
I don't need attention. Years ago, but she's like.
Could we just go ahead?
Well, let's let her finish so we can,
It's possible, I just didn't realize it.
it might have changed now. Include your child in these.
Good, she's. Carissa, would you like to come up? First one. Yes, I didn't rewrite that.
And I am gonna read the thing now.
Yes,
We talked about doing that.
So,
Members of the public are welcome to speak during the public comment section of the meeting only. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Board members will not respond to comments or questions during this time, but they may follow up with speakers following the meeting. Total time for public comments, we really don't have to do that one. Speakers are asked to please conduct themselves with respect and civility towards others. Thank you.
Okay, well, I didn't plan on speaking. I'm Carissa Culbertson. I'm the instructional coach at Pleasant Acres. I was there a few minutes. So, I think what I want to say is not that I'm like, oh, I like this option, because I don't know yet. I have to sit with it. I for sure do not want to go backwards to, what I would consider as backwards to split level classes, because we did live that and we are finally out of that. And I don't think going back to that is in the best interest. So, but what I do want to say specifically about options 4 and 5 is I was just waiting for somebody to bring up, what does this do to our kids though? Because some of you did mention like, oh, we do have a very different demographic. You are right. And some people like to say, kids are resilient, they can handle change. I'm here to tell you, they cannot. If we prepare them properly, they can deal with change and they'll cope, but it doesn't mean it's what's best for them. So a prime example of that is, I mean, day to day, there's changes in a schedule, there's an assembly, a Veterans Day assembly, a picture, those kids, many of our children don't handle that very well. Change is very, very hard. It's hard for adults too. And I'm not here to preach to you about, I don't like change. It's not because of that. It's because what we know it can do to our students. Especially we keep saying our demographic, especially our demographic. We have a high mobility rate. If I could change that, that's probably the first thing I would change, is that somehow we could control how kids move. We can't control that. But what I will tell you is, if we move kids from building to building repeatedly, I don't believe it's what is best for them. They are forming relationships with their peers, yes. If you pick up any book related to teaching, whether it's curriculum, engagement strategies, behavior, classroom management, somewhere in there, they're going to tell you the most important thing is to form relationships and connections with those students and their families. And that takes time. So conscious discipline says it takes at least 6 weeks to form a connection with a student, but then to continue it throughout the year is that much more difficult. And for kids that come from trauma, it's like quadruple that. Okay. When we have students that move in, when we tracked, I think I shared this last year, when we tracked behavior data, the students that we would see have as repeated, having repeated, I don't know what to call it. I hate to say the word issues, but I didn't prepare anything. So repeated incidents are students that were not at Pleasant Acres from the start. They did not come up with what we've been trying to teach them. Moving in is very hard, right? Why? Well, because everything is new. But what we're doing is from year to year, making it harder. We get phone calls a lot, not just at PA, like PA to other schools to PA. We don't know what's going on. We have this student, we don't, and you know what the answer is? They're a connection kid. They have to trust you. That's going to take a lot of time. Families too. It's taken us years sometimes to get families to trust us to come in and feel comfortable in the school. And I just am so worried about what's going to happen if, okay, they're at PA for what? Like pre-K and K, maybe, right? And then they go to another school. And then in a couple of years, they go to another school. And then they go to another school and another school. And I just feel like we're starting over and over again. So that is one of, I think, my biggest concerns with this model is we're talking a lot about logistics and being fiscally responsible and what makes the most sense. And I
think that that's important, but we have got to remember that what you're talking about, these numbers, these are people, these are our students, they have families. Yeah, you've brought up, I think, touched on it a little bit, and you've definitely considered like, what is it gonna do to the teachers? And I'm thankful for that, but whatever happens with us, it depends on how the students are reacting to it. That's what's gonna make our job either harder or probably not easier, but implementing more changes for these kids to have to adjust to year, am I off?
No,
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Is what I fear the most, is not what is best for them. So please just have a discussion about that. If you don't, if you can't relate to what I'm talking about, I understand. Come and talk to some teachers and say, tell us more. Like, what do you mean by that? Some of you talked about, I moved and yes, some kids are gonna be fine. They're gonna deal with the change. I worry that the majority of our kids will not. And then the last thing I'll say is, yes, I want you to be fiscally responsible. I think that was a question on the survey to rate. Something about how important is it to you that the board is fiscally responsible? And I had a hard time answering that question because I was like, I know what this means. Yes, I want you to, I don't want you spending money like it's water, but at the same time, if we're prioritizing things, I don't want you cutting corners just to save money if it's gonna all blow up in our face. Like if we, and I know you don't either, right? I just think that discussion needs to happen is, okay, we're gonna do this and it's gonna save us money, or we can't do this because we don't have that money to spend or whatever. But please just think about like, it's gonna save us money, but what else could happen if we do this? What does this actually look like for these people?
Time is up.
Okay? So
I didn't realize the clock wasn't on the screen.
sorry. I didn't know what I was gonna say either, which is why. That's why I usually type it out.
Sorry, I'll wait till you start talking. Are you gonna?
Okay, for the next meeting.
No. Nope.
Okay.
Rachel.
So first, I'd like to thank Board Member Vaughn. Your questions and insight, I think, has been really helpful for the rest of the board. And I'd like to thank Dr. Woods for all his hard work on putting these options together. I think the best thing for you guys to do is look at the evaluation framework, because you guys had directed him to create a rubric, which he did. And so if you guys want to look at that real quick, if you see option 1 only checks off 3 of the boxes, option 2, 4, option 3, 2, option 4, 8, and option 5, 4. So remember, as elected officials, your guys' job is to do what's in the best interests of the students, the staff, and the community. And one of those things is to look at efficiency and the spending. So when you look at it this way, it looks like number 4 is a no-brainer and that checks off like all the boxes. I understand Carissa's concern. However, the kids are going to be together. Like they're going to make those relationships and they're going to follow each other from school to building. So that's also a good thing. I know Nikki asked about like, well, what do teachers think? And I know Dr. Woods had mentioned like, well, we've got a mixture. And we've had this survey before. You guys all came to the schools, or not all of you, but a majority of you came to the schools and talked to us. It's not everybody's gonna like it. A lot of people might, but it's just, that's why it just needs to be a decision that's you guys direct Dr. Woods to do, because if we're gonna move this direction, I think staff, students and parents would like to know sooner than later. So each month we delay this with, let's do another survey, let's do that. I feel like we've done a lot of that already, so we just need to start doing what's best. I noticed that we skipped over the school report cards today, but that's another.
In there.
It's in there, but we didn't talk about it out loud. But that's another area where we need to improve. So would this give us a chance to improve it if we were all together at a grade level, being able to spin off ideas? As we said, split classes, that is not a good practice. So you know what? You know how I feel and what I think is the best, but I just hope that you guys look at all the options, look at the rubric, see what checks off and make the best decision in the interest of the staff, the students and the community.
That's it. No one else? Any follow comments? Thank you very much for sharing.
You guys don't have anything to say?
Said next week.
Okay, it's to board and superintendent comments. Board, do you have any comments?
I do. So my friend Jamie, who used to be a TA here, but she moved to North Carolina and I'm super sad. But she told me that in North Carolina, they call their special education students ECs, exceptional children. And I think that's wonderful. And I think that we should do that here because I don't know if you can just do it, but I think that we should because it's a positive thing. And I feel like that would help with people's spirits. You know, you always
Like
laugh
in
when you
Acres, they
write
call every kid a
sentences.
scholar. That's all they call them, is they're scholars.
Yes, because PA has a thing going on, but I like for a number of reasons. One, because I come from PA, so I understand what you're saying about the whole pride thing. Because I still have it, and my kids get mad for it, but I do still have it. But I'm also a Libra, so I understand about going around too. So I don't know.
Anybody else?
Hard. I don't want to be hard.
Oh, sorry.
It's going to be hard to decide, and I don't want to rush. And I want to ask all the questions. And I know that gets on some people's nerves, but I do. And I want us to talk and decide in the best ways.
And you both have very good points. What you
Yes.
said is the church, that's what I was thinking. I didn't say it, but, you know, some kids, it's hard for change on them, especially because of the dynamics and what they've lived through in their life. You know, at a young age, they've gone through a lot of things. It's hard.
Yes.
And, and especially, and I'm gonna say it, that we're immigrant population because of everything that they've gone through coming here. You know, it's trauma. Whether accepted or not, it's trauma and, and so it's hard for them and they get to where they feel like family and they feel they're being accepted. That's very important. You guys have that and I see it. You know, a lot of the schools have it, and what Rachel said is the truth too, we have an obligation and a duty to do what's right, but not only for students, staff, and the community. And it's tough. So going around talking to parents and staff, maybe it might change the difference. I don't know. I don't have the answers.
But getting our students prepared, the report card is very important to me
Yeah.
because I've been thinking about that a lot. Like, are we preparing our students to go to high school? And is the high school preparing our students to go to college? I don't even know. Doesn't seem like, none of my kids bring home homework. I don't understand how it's gonna work. It's freaking me out a little bit, but I do think it's necessary that our report card is higher, because I would assume that it's not very good. So.
Can I just say thank you to Mr.
So you go right
Butterson?
ahead.
Thank you for bringing up an opposing opinion or giving your opinion, because I think debate about a topic is very, very important. And I really
That was
feel
my
like,
main thrust. That's why I'm not trying to convince anybody. I thought that would hopefully get us going in a good discussion. That was my. I appreciate all of you because, we're asking good questions. And
thank you.
I couldn't agree more with Rachel and her comment about It's like you and we all try, try to do our best. Hope can try. Well,
Your turn. I have a whole page.
oh,
All right, I want to congratulate our Educator of the Year nominees.
Yes.
Rebecca Lightly, Sarah McKinstry, April Webb, Kayla Daughtry, and Sherry Harper. Three of them were able to attend the chamber banquet last Friday, and we had
that's a good time.
4 board members there also, so they didn't win, I'm sorry to say. So the high school band teacher won. He seems deserving.
My wife had to rub that in.
Yes. All right, Miss Hannah has given you all your very important folder for the Triple I conference. It's coming up. Don't forget also, Mr. Henderson is presenting at the Triple I conference this year on Saturdays, but you've got the details. And me, yes, but I want to give him all the.
Sure gonna be there.
So, next board meeting, I'm going in chronological order, it's December 19th. Question came up about we always do a staff gift at the holidays. And we had talked a little bit last year about doing something more. Well, it's a little, we need to start talking about next year now. But I'm going to tell you what we're doing this year. Don't tell any other teachers. So one thing that has come up, I guess one thing that's come up in the last year, I was explaining this to Robin, is the legal guidance now is we cannot give staff members things like gift cards because it's considered income and we would have to withhold taxes and pay pension benefits on a $25 gift card. So I know that's exciting, isn't it? So we are doing I don't even want to tell them because I designed this awesome coffee cup, which everybody likes a new coffee cup. But the main thing is most of the money is going to the buildings to do a nice luncheon the week before they leave for winter break. So I'll get the schedule for you. I know some of you like to visit the luncheons. Well, now you'll visit the luncheons and deliver the coffee mugs.
Yes.
Very stylish.
Are they made of Legos?
They are not like.
Can you imagine that?
If it could be done, he'd do it.
I know, random, we don't like, this meeting's already long enough, but I found when we were moving out of the old district office, one of the old staff holiday gifts, which we apparently used to give teachers knives.
I have one on my desk.
A pocket knife.
Thanks for your appreciation.
It's like. Thanks for your appreciation. Hannah is so excited about how well our blood drive went that she scheduled another one on Valentine's Day. So you'll show your love by giving blood. It's our slogan. JW Ader is, I want to make sure the board is aware, they've been doing this now for a few years. But on their days of state testing, they are going to continue to do the early dismissal for the kids. It's kind of a godsend for the kids and the staff to try and maintain that testing environment, get them through the morning and lunch and then send them home. It is allowable that we can do that.
Is that coming up here?
It's April 2nd and 3rd. Miss Jacobs is going to start pushing that information out to parents pretty soon. And also, this is where the board gets to veto me if they want, but working with Lori Bednarz, the pre-K director, we've decided to go ahead and cancel school for pre-K only on the last 2 days of school. We'll probably, if we have enough remote days, we'll call them remote days for those kids. We're going to have packing days. They've got to pack up an entire school, get it ready. And then Hannah's making arrangements right now to do the physical move, furniture and all of that. But we thought if we can, the other thing I guess to be aware of is pre-K does not have to attend as many school days as K through 8. So we can actually do this. They have to attend 161 days.
The building will be done.
Building is on schedule. It should be done mid-March. So I say that out loud. Okay.
Well, we have a closed session. get somebody
I'll
to,
make the motion to move to closed session regarding the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance.
You just say personnel and litigation. Okay, sorry. You can read the whole thing
I'm
too.
reading what's on the paper.
Litigation is all you have to know.
Litigation.
do what you need to do.
Can I get a second, please?
I'll say.
I second. Oh.
So, yeah, you can do it.
Yeah.
You're up.
Okay, I'll do it. Okay.
Did you get somebody?
Diana Mendoza, aye. Vicky Pettit,
Aye.
Tyler Wilson.
Aye.
Robin Vaughn, John Levin.
Aye.
And for the public, we are going to go ahead and stop recording and broadcasting. There's no action after closed session.
It should not be that long.
Here you go.
We're still recording though.
Yeah, it is, and so you.
Thanks so much.